Yamuna Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivadachari Gopi Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivadachari Gopi Janna Vallabha Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Yamuna Tira Vanachariya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Chinese Vishnu Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Asto Talasata Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Abhay Charanada Vinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki ISKCON and BBTT Founder-Acharya save the whole world Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitya Vishnu Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Asto Talasata Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Namacharya Sharidas Thakur Ki Premjara Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Hare Sri Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Shri Radha Krishna Gokavana Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Braj Bhumi Shivindavadama Ki Navadip Mayapur Dhamma Ki Purushtam Chacha Jagat Pujama Ki Gangamai Ki Jamurmai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Maharani Ki Samaveta Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Nitai Oh Premanandi Oh glorious Devotees Oh glorious Devotees Oh glorious Devotees Oh glorious Lotus Feet of Sri Guru and Sri Garanga Oh glorious to Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Yate Shudre Tam Anyo Agad Yate Shudro Tam Anyo Agad Yate Shudre Tamanyo Gad Atiti Swabi Avrita Atiti Swabi Avrita Atiti Swabi Avrita Yate Shudre Tamanyo Gad Atiti Swabhiravrita Rajan Me diyatam anam rajanme diyatam annam raje mi diyatam annam saganaya bubukshute saganaya bubukshute saganaya bubukshute rajan mediyatamanam saganaya bubukshate yate shudro tamanyogad atiti swabir avrita rajan mediyatamanam saganaya bubukshate yate shudro tamanyogad atiti swabir avrita rajan mediyatamanam saganaya bubukshate. Yate, when he went away, Shudre, the Shudra guest, Tam, unto the king, Anya, another, Agat, arrived there, Atiti, guest, Swabi, Shrabi Avrita, accompanied by dogs. Rajan, O king, me, unto me, diyatam, deliver, anam, eatables, sagunaya, with my company of dogs, bubukshate, hankering for food. Translation: when the Shudra went away, another guest arrived, surrounded by dogs, and said, O king, I and my company of dogs are very hungry. Please give us something to eat. Responsively, please. When the Shudra went away, another guest arrived, surrounded by dogs, and said, O king, I and my company of dogs are very hungry. Please give us something to eat. So I'll read more because there's no purport here, but a few interesting points here. Firstly, a Shudra has come, but not only, the Shudra's just left, but then another person comes surrounded by dogs. And usually, a person won't give dogs very much sort of attention, and they tend to be neglected. But some people, they keep dogs, and this person here is keeping dogs, and usually a person who keeps dogs is considered to be unclean, because dogs by nature are unclean. You can see they lick everything. I don't have to go too much into the habits of dogs, but you can see they're actually quite unclean. And yet Rantideva was very compassionate, and he was willing to take care of any living entity. Another significant point in this verse is this word atiti. So atiti generally means an uninvited guest, someone who turns up unknown. And there's a concept of what is called atiti bhagavan. So that the unexpected guest, not uninvited, because uninvited tends to indicate you're not wanted, but the unexpected guest, when they come, then a grihasta, a cultured person, especially a grihasta, will see them as being representations or manifestations of God, and will respect them accordingly. Although we see in this modern society, I won't use the word culture because it's quite devoid of culture, but in modern society, we see that you generally don't go to a person's house without letting them know you're coming. They don't like to receive, sort of uninvited or unexpected guests. You should ring before you come, you should let us know. They just don't have the culture. And you'll see this culture that is being presented here. There's a very, very wonderful demonstration of Vedic culture. We see with Rantideva, he's seeing all personalities as direct, he's seeing them in relation to Krishna. And this is the point. He doesn't see anything different from Krishna or anything unconnected from Krishna. And here he's been fasting for 48 days. Then one guest comes and asks him for something, so he gives him half his food. Then another guest comes, the Shudra comes, and he again gives him half the food he has left. And then this man comes with dogs, and again he gives him whatever he has remaining. So he's completely detached from the pains and enjoyment of the body. And he just sees that these personalities are all expansions of Krishna. They're all Krishna, representing Krishna. And he also, one of the points we see here that comes out in this story is Rantideva is very much concerned about the sufferings of other living entities, and he suffers when he sees others suffer. And as we see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's this concept of paradukha dukhi. Is a Vaishnava, when he sees someone else in distress, he becomes distressed. But we see in modern society as paradukha sukhi. When I see someone else distressed, I become happy, because that means I'm not suffering. And so it's very much a self-centered society. And of course, I think the classic manifestation of that in society is the news on television at night, or on the radio or whatever. It's talking about all these disasters and horrible things that are happening to different people around the world. And people feel good because it's not happening to me, it's happening to somebody else. But when it happens to them, they become very, very distressed. So we'll see as this story progresses how Rantideva is very much like that. All right, I'll read verse 9. Sa adritya svashishtam yad bahumana puraskritam tascha dattva namaschakre swabhya swapataye vibhu. With great respect, King Rantideva, see, notice this, with great respect. It wasn't just, oh God, not somebody else, coming in and trying to take all my meal. isn't it? I mean, that's the modern kind of thing. It's like if someone, and you'll see in this society we're living in here, the idea of giving charity is generally frowned upon. You don't go and knock on someone's door seeking charity. You know, there's various religious groups that often will do door knocking and stuff like that, and you know, people generally frown upon it. Oh, you know, here they are banging on the door again. You know, what do you want? Why are you harassing me? Go away. This is the general kind of mood. Of course, we do see that sometimes there are various charitable appeals that are conducted in society. I remember when I was a kid, there was, I think, Yarala was this a welfare sort of thing. You know, it's for children that are intellectually and physically handicapped, and they used to have a big promotion. It's gone for quite some time on television and stuff like that. But people were sort of psyched up. They'd prepare them for it over a period of time, and they'd have famous people coming on and talking about how it should, it's good to give in charity and stuff like that. So sometimes they do give, but generally speaking, you'll find in Western society, they're not so favorable or so favorably disposed towards people seeking charity. And it's easy to experience that. You just go and ask for donations. It's not easy. People don't like to. They want to get something in return. They don't mind having a business deal, but they don't want to just give money for no reason at all. What they think is no reason at all. But we see here where when this person came with the dogs and was asking Rantideva for something to eat for him and his dogs. Like some people say, "Oh, I'll give you something. I'm not going to give something to the dogs. They're just dogs after all." With great respect, and this makes this point here. I'll read the verse. It says, "With great respect, King Rantideva offered the balance of the food to the dogs and the master of the dogs, who had come as guests. The king offered them all respects and obeisances." So not only was he willing to feed them, but he was also respecting them, and he was actually offering glorification, obeisances. It mentions here. Quite possibly he was offering at least pranams, maybe even bowing down to the dogs and the guests. And there's this is really highlighting the characteristics of a Vaishnava. There's a great personality in Lord Chaitanya's Lila called Shivananda Sen, and Shivananda Sen was one of his services was every year he would take care of the party that travelled from West Bengal to Puri to see Lord Chaitanya and to stay for the Rath-yatra and Snan Yatra and the different ceremonies there. And they would stay for several months. And so his service was to take care of the travelling party, see to their accommodation, their food, pay all the tolls, arrange for crossing rivers and things like that. And one year a dog joined the party. And so Shivananda Sen saw him also as ultimately part and parcel of Krishna, so he was taking care of the dog as well. And making sure the dog was fed, making sure the dog was able to get across the river, in the boats, and whatever the needs of the dog were to see that it was properly accommodated, etc. And at one point, Shivananda Sen got caught up with some tax keepers, so the tollman, and so he wasn't able to. By the time the party reached their destination for the night, he was late, so he wasn't able to make proper arrangements. And also he wasn't able to make proper arrangements for the dog. So the dog just left the party and kept walking towards Puri. And when Shivananda Sen Shivananda Sen was considering he committed a great offence because the dog had left the party because he wasn't being cared for. At least this is his perspective on it. And when they got to Puri, they saw that the dog was already there. And Lord Chaitanya was offering the dog pieces of coconut pulp. He was showing him coconut pulp, but he was getting to chant the holy names of Krishna. And so the dog was chanting Hare Krishna. Every time he'd chant the holy name, he'd throw the dog a piece of this coconut pulp, from the inside of the coconut. And when Shivananda Sen saw the dog, he thought he'd committed a great offence, a great aparad to the dog because he neglected the dog's needs. And this is something that's really interesting. I was listening to this class this morning, And it was from chapter 9 of the first canto. And this is when the Pandavas, they go down to see Bhishmadev. This is after the teachings of Queen Kunti, after the battle of Kurukshetra. And the word that's being used there is praja. It doesn't, it's talking about the citizens. And Prabhupada was making the point that in the verse it doesn't refer to the human beings, it refers to citizens, because actually a king would see that all the residents of the kingdom were citizens, not just those in human bodies. And Yudhisthira Maharaj has described how, because before they went to see Bhishmadev, Yudhisthira was lamenting that so many citizens had died for him. And he was not lamenting just about the humans, but all the horses, all the different animals that were killed in the battle, just like you look at what's going on in Ukraine right now, and how there's this war, and they're indiscriminately firing missiles and dropping bombs and stuff like that. And forests, etc., be completely blown apart. So all these trees are being killed, and other living entities in the forest, squirrels and whatever the living entities are there. And so Yudhisthira Maharaj, because he's a great Vaishnava, is a great king also, is actually concerned for all living entities, not just the humans. And we see with Shivananda Sain, when he wasn't able to take care of the dog's needs, he felt like he committed a great offense against the dog, because the dog had taken shelter of him. And this is the position of the king, because the king, as the leader, sees that these personalities have taken shelter of him. Therefore, it's his duty to protect them. Therefore, it's his duty to provide for them. And we see that when Shivananda Sain, when he saw this dog and Lord Chaitanya was throwing him scraps, he bowed down and offered his obeisances to the dog, begging forgiveness for his offense. And like, if someone was to do that today, you'd think he was crazy. Why is he bowing down to a dog? But Shivananda Sain wasn't seeing that this is a dog, but actually seeing that this is a living entity that's in a dog's body. Living entity, part and parcel of Krishna. And this is the vision, that there's that verse in, I think it's quoted in the previous purport, this Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavi Hastani Shunishaiva Sapakacha Pandita Samadashana. So this point of Samadashana, someone who's not on the bodily. See, when we're on the bodily concept of life, we look at every living entity in terms of the body. We look at their body and we identify, you are a man, you are a woman, you are a cat, you are a dog. All that, we identify them with externalities, and we identify everything we interact with based on the externalities. Just like you might have an interaction with someone and they don't agree with you on something. They have a difference of opinion. And the tendency is to identify with them based on the fact that they disagreed with me. Rather than looking at, well, no, they just have a difference of opinion. They're still a nice person, but they have a difference of opinion. It's okay to have a difference of opinion, but you'll see quite commonly that people who are very much caught up in the bodily concept of life, anything that differs from what they think it should be, they reject that. They don't like that. And so we see with a personality like Shivananda Sain, Yudhisthira Maharaj, and here we see Rantideva, they're identifying all the citizens as part and parcel of Krishna, but also that they're under my protection, therefore I have to take care of them. So, and we see with Rantideva, he put the care of the citizens above his own care and well-being and the care and well-being of his family. Because it's described here how his family were all suffering because they'd been fasting for 48 days. The king fasted, his family fasted too. And then so they're feeling great hunger. I'll read on. And so he's given away all the last food he had, and then he offers respects and obeisances to the dogs and the master of the dogs. Paniya matra muchesam taschaika paritarpanam pashita pukasobhyagud apodeya shubhaya me. Thereafter, only the drinking water remained, and there was only enough to satisfy one person. But when the king was just about to drink it, a Chandala appeared and said, "O king, although I am low-born, kindly give me some drinking water." Just one person after the next, after the next, after the next, coming, "Give me this, give me this, give me that," and he's giving away everything he has. And he's not disturbed by it. That's the thing that's quite remarkable about this pastime. It's like, we might have some charitable disposition, and we'll give away this, and we'll give away that, but what winds up happening is that resentment comes because, I'm hungry, I need to eat. And these people are coming, okay, I have to take care, and I have to give charity and stuff like that. But we feel resentment, or we feel dissatisfaction, or we feel, I'm so hungry, and we start to lament. But Rantideva wasn't like that. He was completely peaceful. And this is the symptom of someone who's situated in transcendence, is it doesn't matter what happens in this life. They're completely peaceful because of this samadashana. They're not making distinctions. They're not seeing one as higher and one as lower. They're seeing that ultimately that every living entity is a part and parcel of Krishna. Every living entity is a servant of Krishna. And this is how they see. They don't see, black and white. They don't see boy or girl. They don't see, one from this country, one from that country. And this is the big problem in this day and age. It's like, because if you look at the word praja, the way Srila Prabhupada was defining it in class this morning, is because someone takes birth in a particular country, therefore you give preference to them because of birth in that country. And he was talking about the immigration people, when you go from one country to another. Sometimes you go to these immigration people, they really, ask you some really kind of pointed questions and really grill you to try and find out what you're there for. But actually, if we understood that every living entity, and I was actually talking with Nanda Tanuja about that yesterday when I came from the airport. He picked me up. And I remember as a child in the 60s traveling from Australia to Malaysia, and the kind of security and the immigration arrangements, they were practically non-existent. There was no security. There's no X-ray machine to scan your bags. There was no scanners to see if you're carrying any explosives on you or anything like that. There's just nothing. They stamped your passport. You went through. That was it. And now it's just like, you got all these machines radiate you, and just to see if you've got any explosives on you or whatever. It's quite. In London they've got this new thing now where you can take fluids, you can take liquids through now, but they take all the liquids out of your bag, and they've got this machine they put them in. They radiate them to see if there's anything dangerous in them. It's just incredible, And it's like, all this radiation you're getting bombarded with. It's quite an experience these days. But we see here with these great Vaishnavas is they don't look at the living entity in terms of the body, and they're not saying, well, because he's born in this land, therefore I favor him, and because they're born in that land, I don't favor. And this is very much what goes on in the world these days. Is all these wars and different things that are going on, and policies by governments and like, you're from this country, no, you can't come in. Oh, these people from this country, they're nice, they can come. It's very much based on the body, and they discriminate against others based on their body, and wars are started based on the body. It's all bodily conscious, but we see with personalities like Yudhisthira Maharaj and Shivananda Sen and here with Rantideva, they're not influenced by this bodily concept of life. They're actually understanding that ultimately all living entities are part and parcel of Krishna. Therefore, I respect them. And it's not an artificial respect, because he's seeing. There's Vidya Vinaya Sampanna, he's seeing with equal vision. The learned and gentle Brahma, the cow, the elephant, the dog eater. Because of this samadashana, this equal vision. He's seeing that ultimately every living entity is a servant of Krishna, even though they may be in a conditioned state, even though they may be bewildered about who they are. And that's the situation of most living entities in this material world. They're bewildered about who they are. They think they're the body. But someone who's God conscious understands they're not the body, and therefore, seeing that they're in a bewildered state, realizes they're suffering. Even though we see so many people we interact with, they think they're enjoying. They think they're having a wonderful time in this material world. But they're bewildered about their identity. They have no idea of who they are. It's like a person with amnesia. I was in Coles in Moolumbar yesterday. Day before yesterday. And there was a young man there. I guess he's probably in his mid-20s, maybe going up to 30s. And he's just a little bit puggle, I guess. And he's got a banana, right? And he's talking with the banana like it's a phone. And he's going, no, my name's David. You know, he's having a serious conversation with his banana. And so he's bewildered about who he is. He's bewildered about, and that's an obvious thing, this person's obviously bewildered because of some mental condition. But the reality is, everyone in this material world is bewildered. We look at people in that unfortunate situation and think, they're crazy. But Prabhupada would often say, everybody's crazy. Why? Because they think they are something they are not. They think they're this body. Whereas someone like Rantideva, he understands he's not the body, and he sees that others are bewildered by this concept. Therefore, he's compassionate because he realizes because of this identification with something that they're not, they're suffering in this material world. And so we see with the great Vaishnava, because of this understanding that I'm not the body, they're not the body, they're all servants of God, they're bewildered about this, they become compassionate and they want to give Krishna consciousness. One time, one of the devotees said to Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, everybody loves you. What was Prabhupada's response? He says, that's because I love everyone. This is the position of a great Vaishnava. They're not seeing, if we see from the body perspective, okay, here we are in Australia, I'm an Australian, I only love Australians. And some of these countries are very, very, Australia's a classic example, England's another example, America. Very much, this racial discrimination is very prominent in these countries, especially in the past. It's at least nowadays, it's less prominent. It's still there, but it's bubbling away under the surface, but it's less obvious. But because these people have a different body from me, therefore I discriminate against them. But actually, the proper understanding is the body is external. They're all the same as me because they're all eternal part and parcel of Krishna, spirit, soul. Jivera Sarupa Hoy, Krishna and Nitya Das. They're all the same. So with this understanding, as we see, Prabhupada would say, he loved everyone because he understood that everyone was an eternal servant of Krishna. Okay, I'll read a few more verses and we'll hit a purport. Tasyatam karunam vacham nishamya vipulashamam kripaya brisham santapta idam ahamritam vacha. Aggrieved at hearing the pitiable words of the poor, fatigued Chandala, Maharaj Rantideva spoke the following nectarian words. It's a very short purpose, I'll read one more verse. Maharaj Rantideva's words were like amrita or nectar, and therefore, aside from rendering bodily service to an aggrieved person, by his words alone, the king could save the life of anyone who might hear them. Why? Why does he have such effect? Because he speaks about Krishna, he gives transcendental knowledge. And because, he doesn't talk about the weather or did you watch the football last night and you see the game or the cricket or what, he's not talking about mundane stuff like that, he's talking about Krishna and spiritual knowledge. So it's saying here, amrita, how his words is amrita vacha. His words are nectar. And just to hear his words is soothing to the soul. It gives relief. And just to hear the words, one gets benefit. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out in his commentary on this verse, what to speak of acting on his words. It's just like we see in that wonderful pastime between Jad Bharat and Maharaj Rahugana. And Rahugana was thinking he was the king and Jad Bharat was just the palanquin carrier. But when he heard the words that were coming from the mouth of Jad Bharat, which were like nectar because they're talking about the actual reality of the self, and these went into Rahugana's heart, his ear, then penetrated to his heart, and he acted upon these words, and he became self-realized. So when we hear words from a great soul and we act upon these words, then we actually gain realization. And the last verse I'll read. Nakamyayeham gatim ishwarat param astari yuktam apuna bhavam va artim prapadye kila deha vajam antastito yena bhavat yadukkaha. I do not pray to the Supreme Person of Godhead for the 8 perfections of mystic yoga, nor for salvation from repeated birth and death. I only want to stay amongst the living entities and suffer all distresses on their behalf, so that they may be freed from suffering. Does anyone know who else prayed like this? A very well-known person in Chaitanya Lila. Huh? Vasudeva Dutt. Yeah, very, very, in the Madhya Lila, I think chapter 15. He talks, he prays like that. Also, Prahlad Maharaj prays like that. Prahlad Maharaj, he said to, when Nrsimha wanted to offer him a benediction, he was saying, no, I have no concern for myself. I'm only concerned for those poor living entities who are suffering in this material world. And interestingly enough, with Vasudeva Dutt, Lord Chaitanya reveals to Vasudeva, is actually, it's not surprising that you're like this because you're an incarnation of Prahlad Maharaj. So we see these great souls, they have this very, very compassionate nature. So he's saying, I only want to stay among... I mean, this is quite extraordinary. It's like, I mean, my experience is, I want to get out of this world. It's a horrible place, But these great souls, and we see this is common amongst acharyas and great personalities, they don't really mind whether, there's that Naraya Paraseva Sarve Nakutasyan Bibhite Svaga Apavaga Nadakeshu Apitulyata Darshana. Lord Shiva, he explains it to Parvati. For the great devotees, they never fear any condition of life. For them, the hellish planets, the heavenly planets are all the same. Why? Because they're always absorbed in serving Krishna. So for them, it doesn't matter where they are. They see the same thing. And we see, in the life of Prahlad Maharaj, how no matter what was confronting him, he was just completely absorbed in serving the Lord and chanting the Lord's names. Prabhupada's purport. Vasudeva Dutt made a similar statement to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, requesting the Lord to liberate all living entities in his presence. Vasudeva Dutt submitted that if they were unfit to be liberated, he himself would take all their sinful reactions and suffer personally so that the Lord might deliver them. Does anyone know someone else who prayed like that? Huh? Yeah, Jesus Christ. Another great Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is therefore described as being paradukha-dukhi, very much aggrieved by the suffering of others. As such, a Vaishnava engages in activities for the real welfare of human society. And we see, different charitable organizations, they do, various types of activities, in their mind for the benefit of society, but they tend to be very much focused on the body. Distributing food or establishing hospitals and things, very much about the body. This is good, but it's not about the ultimate welfare, because the ultimate welfare is to give a person transcendental knowledge, because only through knowledge can one actually understand their position in this material world. I remember in one of the shops I saw, it was a plant shop in Melbourne. They had this poster up on the wall. And of course, I'm talking more about the concept than the activity described in this poster. It says, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he'll eat for his life. So it's just like, say for instance, in welfare work, we give someone food. Okay, their belly's happy for a little while, but 6 hours later, they'll be hungry again. But you teach them transcendental knowledge, they'll be peaceful for life, because it'll actually give them real life. It'll give them spiritual knowledge, will enable them to understand who they are, to understand the self, and it will then enable them to solve all these material problems, because they'll understand who they are. So real welfare work, and this is being described here, is not about just taking care of the body, because the body's temporary. it comes, it grows, it remains for some time, produces byproducts, it dwindles and it vanishes. That's just the nature of the body. But the self is eternal. So if you really want to do something beneficial for someone, help them to understand the nature of the self. Help them to solve the real problems of life. And the real problems of life are not eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Because animals have the same problem. But you cannot instruct an animal to come to God consciousness, but you can instruct a human being to come to God consciousness. You can instruct a human being to help them solve the problems of life. And this is a really important point that's being brought out here. Another really important point that comes out in this pastime is this, the duty of a grihasta. Rantideva is a grihasta. And there's a really interesting story. One time the devotee got married, and he after getting married, he went to Srila Prabhupada and he said, Srila Prabhupada, do you have any instructions for me now that I'm married? And the devotee, he was sort of looking for some kind of, I guess, conjugal type of instruction, how to enjoy with his wife or something like that. And Prabhupada, he said, yes, before you sit down to take your midday meal, you should go out in the street and very loudly you should call out, if anyone is hungry, please come to my home and have something to eat. And he said, you should say this 3 times. And then if no one comes, you can go and eat. And so the devotee was feeling not very satisfied with this. He wanted a different sort of response. So later he asked Prabhupada the same thing. Now that I'm married, do you have some instructions for me, Srila Prabhupada? And Prabhupada said the same thing. He said, yes, before you eat your meal at midday, you go out in the street and you call out very loudly, if anyone is hungry, please come to my home and have something to eat. And later on, he again asked Prabhupada the same question. 3 times he asked him this question. And then Prabhupada gave him exactly the same instruction. Before you eat your midday meal, you should go out in the street and you should call out very loudly, 3 times, if anyone's hungry, please come to my home and have something to eat. And then finally, the devotee understood the life of a grihasta is a life of giving charity. Because a grihasta is meant to maintain the other social orders, the brahmacharya, the vanaprastha, and the sannyas. And this is the duty of a grihasta. And we see Rantideva set such a wonderful example of that he would sacrifice his own comfort and well-being, and he would sacrifice the comfort and well-being of his family without resentment. Just seeing that this is my duty to society. I'm a grihasta, I'm the king of the country, it is my obligation, it's my duty to care for others. And this is why we see, one of the reasons why we see this modern society doesn't work. Because every person is simply caring for themselves and their own. They'll take care of themselves and they'll take care of their families. But even then, often you'll see they'll put themselves before their families. Because this notion of charity, this notion of being liberal and very, very sort of open-hearted and willing to give whatever you have, to the point of exhausting, any stock you might have. It's just not there. And a big reason it's not there is because Brahminical culture is no longer present. Because a Brahmana is very liberal-minded. A Brahmana is very, very open and will give everything they have for the benefit of others. Whereas a Kripana, a miser, is not willing to give anything. It is like Prabhupada one time, he gave the definition of a Kripana, and he said, if my passing air could benefit you, I'll hold it in. Rather than pass air, if he felt that someone could benefit from him pass air, he would hold that in and not pass air. So it's like, this is the nature of a Kripana, is if they could do something to benefit someone, they'll do the exact opposite, because they don't want to benefit. They only want to benefit themselves. And this society is essentially based on this concept of being miserly. And that's why it's not very successful, it's not working. This is why you see so many people on the streets suffering, because of this miserly mentality. It's a pretty messed up society. I'll finish there. Any questions or comments at all? Hare Krishna. You're already prepared, you've got the microphone there.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for the nice class. Prabhu, you were talking about how Rantideva, how he saw everyone with an equal vision. I think personally seeing everyone in the same way in relation to Krishna is practically impossible. How can we see everyone in a practical, equal way? Because in this material world, we will have disagreements with people. So can we disagree without disrespecting them? Can we disagree with them without disrespecting them so that they don't get offended?
Well, I was making that point also, because I had an experience recently where someone was trying to convince me of a particular perspective to take, and I wasn't convinced. And I said, no, I don't agree with you. And then after that, I felt judged because of my perspective. And so I reflected on that, and I was thinking that actually it's just because someone has a difference of opinion doesn't make them a good or a bad person. That's just an opinion. You judge a person more by their acts and by the things they do, and the way they treat others and things. Not just because they have an opinion. Because it's just like you might like guavas, for instance. I can't stand guavas. They're the most unpalatable fruit I could ever imagine. But should I judge you because you like guavas and I don't? And so oftentimes we judge people over the most insignificant things. And this is because we're identifying with the body. If they have a difference of opinion of me, they have a different way of looking at things from me, there must be something wrong with them. And even we see, like in our society, in a country like Australia, it's like I used to remember being here in Melbourne in the 80s doing Sankirtan, and especially Christmas time. You probably remember this happening to you, right? Christmas time, they're all having office parties, Christmas parties, and they're all drinking alcohol. And you go into the office, and they'd offer you some alcohol. I say, no, I don't drink. And practically every time the response was, "What's wrong with you? You don't drink alcohol." So I developed this sort of line I give them, because it's half true, because I did have hepatitis, and I said, "Oh no, I've got hepatitis, I can't drink alcohol, it's really bad for my liver." "Oh, you poor person." It's like, if you don't drink, in a country like Australia, if you don't drink alcohol, you're not an Australian. There's something wrong. So it's very much based on, because the thing is they're habituated to doing, if you don't do that, you're different. You're different, there's something wrong with you. And you'll see, over the generations, that so much strife has happened in the world due to this kind of mentality, because they're not willing to accept that people are different. And especially Australia in the 50s, the 60s, and even starting in the 70s, everything was very like cookie cutter kind of thing. Everything was the same. Everyone wore the same clothes. Everyone ate the same types of things. Australia was in the 50s and 60s, a very, very narrow society. It's changed a lot now, especially with the influx of people from other parts of the world, but you'll see in those days, very, very narrow. And if you did something different, you're a foreigner, you're from a foreign planet, you're an alien, and you got treated like that. Even things like, people have different, what do they call them, social disorders and things like that. And they're just ostracized because of that. Now there's more understanding, and people, understanding of why these things come about. But in terms of this samadarshana, that comes when we become Krishna conscious. It's not impossible. It's just because we are bewildered by the external nature, therefore we can't see the difference between the body and the self. We just see the body. and we identify the self as the body. So as long as we're looking at the body, we'll see the difference. But when we see the self, we'll see the sameness. Because ultimately, the jiva is a part and parcel of Krishna. They have their individuality, they have the uniqueness, but they all have the same capacity because they're part and parcel of Krishna. And that's the problem. It's because we're identifying with the body. So if you want to see the sameness with all living entities, we have to get beyond the bodily concept of life. And the only way to do that is through the process of Krishna consciousness. And ultimately, the only way to do that is by receiving the mercy of the Lord or his greatly advanced devotee. The only way you can do it. And the only way you're going to receive the mercy is by dedicating your life to serving Krishna. So it can be done. It's not impossible. It just takes surrender. And you'll see, so many wonderful examples in the Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita of devotees who achieved that realization. And Krishna says in the Gita that many, many persons in the past have achieved this understanding. So, and that's because Arjuna is saying, to control the mind is more difficult than control the wind. I think it's what you're describing is impossible. And Krishna says, no, but many persons have done this. So it's definitely possible. We just have to apply ourselves seriously. But the problem is because we're so attached to enjoying the mind, the senses, the intelligence, we're so attached to this enjoyment, we can't let go. And because we can't let go, or not we can't let go, we won't let go. It's just, it's just like a drowning man. If a drowning person's hanging onto something in the water, and then someone throws them something else which is better, they're reluctant to let go of that because they think because they're drowning, they can't swim, they think they're going to die. And we're like that in the material world. We're thinking, I can't give this up. This is my life. This whatever it is. Like Prabhupada, he talks about sometimes when he traveled on the trains in India, and he saw this man with these burnt pieces of wood. And this man's clinging on these burnt pieces of wood like they're such a valuable possession. But if you're a millionaire and you see someone with burnt pieces of wood, you can't appreciate that this is so valuable to this person. You can't understand. And so it's the same for us. What we're clinging on to in this material world is so insignificant. But because of our lack of understanding, we think it's so important. And so we have to cultivate this knowledge through studying the scriptures. The knowledge comes, and as the knowledge grows, the renunciation grows. And we see Rantideva was completely detached from the body, and everything related to the body, and his attachment was Krishna and everything related to Krishna. And so, as you become detached from matter, you automatically become attached to spirit, providing you're following a spiritual path. And so, just keep studying the scriptures, keep practicing devotional service, and it'll come automatically. It just comes. This is like lightning and illumination occur simultaneously. So as you become detached from the material world, you become attached to the spiritual realm. Anything else? Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hare Krishna, Hare